Welcome to Truest Blood, the official True Blood podcast.
I'm Kristin Bauer.
And I'm Deborah Ann Wool.
And you've been invited in.
I want to do bad things with you. On Truest Blood.
Welcome back to Truest Blood, where we sink our fangs into the series bite by bite.
This week, Gregg Daniel is here, and neither Deb nor I got to work with him while we were on the show, so we were particularly excited to hear about his experience.
Yes. I mean, he's a consummate artist.
Yes.
No leaf left unturned, no question uninvestigated.
Yeah.
And it really was a pleasure to hear him speak.
It was.
It felt like being back in acting class, which is kind of my favorite place to be. So.
I know. It's my least favorite place to be, and I still love. He actually kind of made me want to go to acting class.
He makes you want to go to acting class.
Yeah, that's a feat.
It is.
For me. But first, let's have a quick bite. Storyboarding with Dan Caplan. So this week is a longer, quick bite because we wanted to highlight another aspect of this business that doesn't usually get much airtime.
Yeah.
And that's storyboarding.
And this is great, Kristin. You brought this in. I want to really clarify, Kristin found this fantastic human being and brought it to our attention. So
yeah, I think as an artist, it just really interests me.
Yeah.
And we were lucky enough to get to talk to Dan Caplan, the storyboard artist for True Blood, 6 Feet Under, The Penguin, Westworld, also West Wing. He texted me this week. But the list goes on. And frankly, if you can name it, he probably worked on it.
Yeah, I think it's a small pool. So generally speaking, for those of you who may not know, a storyboard artist is brought in to create illustrations of the shot list, which is literally a list of the camera shots or the angles and movement that the camera will make that the director wants to capture the scene. They look almost like comic book panels at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So, this allows all the departments to get on the same page for the director's vision and anticipate things like what equipment might be needed or whether visual effects will play, how best to schedule the day even. So let's hear what Dan has to say about this unique job.
It's really one of the greatest jobs in the business because I just get to sit in the dream phase with the director and the DP, and we just get to, imagine what it's going to look like before everybody has to do the hard work of making it happen. But True Blood was a really important thing in my career because I realized how important a storyboard could be to various departments. And I figured if I could make it useful to, special effects, visual effects, stunts, those are the kind of the normal ones, but then, wardrobe, production design, if everybody can see themselves represented when they go to the production meeting, it'll raise everybody's issues that everybody has, help them explain it.
It's so interesting. Now, just so you know, not every scene needs to be storyboarded, but anything that requires more than the usual moving parts can benefit greatly. I remember Dan Minahan used to print these up on big poster boards and we could all see them.
Yeah, they would just be right there, near the monitors. And I know, and then he would cross them off as we got them done, which was very cool.
Yes.
It's almost like having an analog edit of that scene before you've even shot it. Very cool. And having that, it reduced time, it reduces footage, which I imagine is kind of a producer's dream.
Yes, it's it's a visual to-do list for the director there.
Yes. And Dan told us a little bit about, what that pre-production phase of creating that scene might look like.
Well, I remember trying to do the big showdown, the sharks and jets moment between the witches and the vampires in the cemetery. And I remember we had a big overblown, oversized map of the location and some army men and, playing around with trying to figure out how we were going to, arrange everybody. And then, actually when we did the big fight outside of Fantasia in season 7, I got to go down on that scout and kind of walk it through with everybody and figure out where everything was going to happen. But yeah, it was always fun for me to be able to go on a set or on a scout, because so much of the time I'm just in a little office with a director. That's one of the fun things about this job, is that I'm just there with the director.
And sexy times.
And sexy time,
Some sexy
which,
figure drawing,
there were
too.
definitely some of the love scenes that we needed to cover, or some of the scenes around the love scenes, because nudity was actually one of those things that, people wanted to know how it was going to be shot, how it was going to be approached.
But Dan didn't just wake up one morning and get hired to draw supernatural naked people for HBO on a whim. A lot of
He didn't? Oh, no.
education, practice, and just plain trial by fire went into his rise, beginning with his own personal inspiration.
Well, it wasn't easy getting into, especially not 30 years ago when I was trying to do that. Like a lot of people my age and artistic people inspired by Star Wars. I saw storyboards from Star Wars and Apocalypse Now when I was in college, and I just realized I was an illustration major, and I realized that that's the perfect thing, because, when I was little, I would come home from the movies and draw pictures, and now I get to draw the pictures before the movie's there.
So then he shared with us that he took live action storyboarding classes, which are different than animation storyboarding. He said he read the few books he could find on the subject and studied under a man named David Jonas, who had worked with Spielberg and Zemeckis. But ultimately, he said he got his start in commercials.
At the time, it was much more common for commercials to need storyboards than TV, since ad agencies needed to communicate their concept to clients that were not necessarily film people. But through those jobs, he began to meet DPs and ADs from the film and TV side. And here, Dan tells us about his big break.
I had two big breaks getting into TV. One was the show Ally McBeal. I would do a lot of those little fantasy sequences that happen in people's heads, right? And kind of parallel to that, the other big break was getting to work with Alan Ball on 6 Feet Under. And did a lot of the cold opens where people died, and those were the unusual scene that they would have to work on there. And I remember getting the call, I think from Scotty Gissel, another one of our first ADs, saying, I'm doing another Alan Ball show. It's about vampires. Are you interested and available? And I was just thinking, Alan Ball and vampires, can we start tomorrow? Can I get in the car now? Yes. But one of the great things about True Blood was, because we had these sequences and because we had these directors, I could really pick their brains and spend some time with them. Michael Lehman used to like to walk in with a shot list printed out, and we'd kind of review them, and it would kind of go out the window a little bit. Here and there, we'd get a pun or two, and then we'd put it together somewhere. And then, but Scott Wynant he was really able to just kind of dictate shot by shot by shot for the edit. He could see it in his head. And so we have, close up of Sookie, and the two shot with Bill, and the overbill to Sookie, and really all of those basic components, how it pieces together and create a sequence.
I mean, what an incredible opportunity for someone to kind of sit in on those kinds of meetings and conversations and
Yeah.
that side of this process.
Mhm.
So you then posed what I thought was a really great question to Dan, which was just about his art practice and how he learned to draw human figures in action rather than like static. This is something I think that's not often taught outside of animation or comic books.
Yeah, it's very challenging to catch motion, and they call it foreshortening. But, it's when
Cool.
the hand is in front of the face reaching towards you. These things are
Yes.
extremely challenging for an artist. And it's such a unique application of illustration that it really is a learn as you do it kind of
Sure.
thing, which I guess is true for a lot of art forms, including acting, really.
Yeah, I'd say so.
As far as being able to just draw stuff, it's easier on a show where the cast is already in place, and as the seasons went on, it was easier to find pictures of you two, and looking like your characters. And so I was able to kind of use that as reference. I do a lot of life drawing. So that really kind of gets the habit and everything I kind of need to know how to depict a human doing actions. And then occasionally I will have my wife or my kids do something. It's easier to get the kids, they're grown now, they're used to it. If they're around, I will grab them. Here, just you be here, you be there, and let me just, So at this point in time, after doing it for so long, I've kind of drawn people in almost every direction and predicament, but I do kind of like it to be a full-on illustration as much as time will allow. I had to remind myself all the time drawing you all and Anna Paquin. It's like they're not paying me to do portraits, but I do want to try to do justice to you. And I'm always a little afraid of when the actors might see it and how they might react.
It was so interesting to hear him say this because, at least for me personally, before seeing Dan's work, all of the storyboard illustrations that I had seen were like stick figures. So it's mostly about composition. But I was really struck by how much Dan is trying to convey atmosphere and emotion as well.
Yeah, we talked about how great he is at drawing the fear in our eyes. I mean, I guess he got a lot of practice doing that on a show like True Blood. Well, fear and, lust, maybe.
Yeah, a lot of that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, he talked about, did you ever look at yourself in his storyboards and, react negatively? Because I can't say that I ever did. I just thought it was cool.
Yeah, I don't remember sort of thinking in my head that has to look like me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was just fascinated by this concept that is still around and being used.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought his work was so exceptional. I was kind of trying to put myself in his shoes as an artist. Like, could I do that? And the answer is no. His work is just so exceptional. And also, I was wondering, just like other jobs in our industry, I was curious if he also worries about AI.
Right.
And how that might affect his work. I mean, is he replaceable as I feel that we are and writers are?
Might be. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. And Dan told us a little bit about that as well.
I feel slightly like maybe I've got the rest, a decent amount of time left in this job because directors, as long as there are directors like collaboration, and they know that they don't have all the answers. And I don't think they're looking to ChatGPT or Midjourney for the answers. And it may help some directors and DPs do a little shortcutting, like get the first iterations of an idea. But I think at this point, certainly the people that I work with are not interested in sitting in front of a computer and entering prompts.
It's true. It's that the people who love collaboration are drawn to this business, I think. And, while the big companies might want to replace us all, I think that there will never be a lack of people who just want to make stuff together.
Yeah, I think so too. And boy, I'm knocking on wood right now.
Me too.
I didn't want Dan to leave without asking him for his 3 words. Yeah. And he didn't disappoint.
Fun has to be one of them. Transformative, because that was really I think it was a transformative time for a lot of people involved. It was something where everybody kind of got to grow and become what they are. A third one, enduring. Yeah. Because I think it's one of these things that sticks with people and has a life long after it. But yeah, thanks for doing this podcast. I mean, I know that there are thousands of fans out there who enjoy listening to it, but I kind of feel like you're doing it for me and for other people because it really fleshes out the whole experience. Because you're talking to all the people that I either worked with or drew,
Right.
and it's just a great way to reconnect with it all.
It's so sweet of him to say that. I mean, it is just an extraordinary privilege to do this, and especially to talk to creators like Dan, like one of the many unsung heroes of the film industry.
Yeah, so true. And there's so many.
Yeah.
So thank you to Dan Caplan for joining us and sharing his knowledge. And you can check out his work for yourself at filmsketches.com or on his Instagram at dancaplan_art. Gregg Daniel is a Brooklyn-born native, just like our own Deborah Ann Wall here.
Woot, woot.
And then he went on to attend the prestigious NYU's Tisch School of the Arts.
Now, of course, you all know him as the beloved Reverend Daniels, and also likely from his recurring role as David Carter on HBO's Insecure.
The depth of Gregg's career is so vast. It covers stage, screen, university teaching. It's staggering.
I mean, with over 100 credits in film and television alone, Gregg's roles span the spectrum from comedies like Curb Your Enthusiasm to dramas like Good Trouble to procedurals like Grey's Anatomy.
To science fiction, my favorite, Star Trek Voyager, and many children's shows, Alexa and Katie being just one. He's also been fortunate enough to work with some of the best feature directors in the business, from Todd Phillips in the current Joker movie to Sam Raimi in Spider-Man 3 and Tim Burton in Mars Attacks.
But he has also expanded this passion into teaching at USC and for theater. He's an extremely accomplished theater director and actor and artistic director of the Los Angeles-based Lower Depth Theater, with countless award nominations and winning the NAACP award.
And fun facts, everybody, he was on Deb's favorite show, News Radio, and on my favorite show, West Wing, and he played Oprah's husband. I mean, how many people can say that?
Without further ado, here's Gregg Daniel. Hi, Gregg. Welcome to the show. We're
Gregg.
so excited to have you here.
Thank you. Both are so warm. Thank you. It's nice to be invited on.
I know. We're so excited. You know, we are super big fans because we've just been watching the show. So we're just so impressed with your performance. And then
Thank you.
I was internet stalking you, and I just can't. Now I'm actually nervous to interview you. Your work, the breadth and depth of your work is extraordinary.
Oh, that's so sweet of you to say thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I've been lucky. I mean, I know it sounds like cliche, but no, I've been lucky. I've been lucky to work continuously in this industry, to get some terrific roles. I also, as you know, I'm a stage director as well.
Yeah.
So I'm in a theater somewhere in Los Angeles or beyond, directing a production. So I've been creatively, things have worked out really well for me, really well. So thank you.
Yeah, we'll get into more of it, but also teaching. You've been teaching at USC, where I graduated many, many years ago. I love it.
Fight on.
Yeah, fight on.
So our first question we ask everybody is, how did you get the role?
Interesting you should ask.
It always is.
It always is. I was in a play. I was doing a play in Cape May, New Jersey. This lovely Elizabethan town in New Jersey. My manager contacted me, telling me they wanted me to go on tape for this role. And Alan Ball's show. And I already knew about the show because Adina Porter, who wanted to play my wife, of course, was on. I knew her from New York days doing theater. So I thought, there's no way I'm going to get a cast, sending in a tape. This is way before self-tapes were even existed. The thought of going on tape and sending it in, and somehow they're going to, no. So I said, I almost didn't do it. I said, this is a waste of time. They're not going to cast me. I found someone on Cape May, New Jersey, who had some sort of video set up.
Oh my gosh.
We taped the audition. I sent it in. Next thing, I got a call from my manager saying, they want you. And I'm like, get out of here.
Wow.
They want you. And that's how I got to. But it's funny because I said yes. I kept saying yes to myself and not no to myself. There was all these excuses for, oh, Gregg, you're busy right now. You don't, oh, Gregg, you don't want to tape something. They're not going to, you have to be in the room. You can't, they're not going to tape you for that. So I kept saying yes rather than no. This is like a lesson.
I hear this
Here
is
is a lesson.
Yeah.
teacher Daniel.
No,
Professor
really. Don't
Daniel.
keep,
Yeah.
find ways to say yes, particularly when it comes to your
Yeah.
career. Thank you, Professor Daniel. I still have to get used to that. Find ways to say yes. Because I kept saying there's just no way. And that's the shot.
Yeah.
And I was cast that way off of tape, sent
Wow.
into Alan Ball and the producers
Mm.
from the other side of the United States. And I
Wow.
was cast just like that.
And
Wow.
did you, because on one of the fan sites, it had the breakdown of what the role was. And I'm wondering what you knew as far as if you'd be, because for me, I just read as a guest star as well. And so it
Same.
says here, male, African American, the pastor at Lenny Mae's church. He tries to offer comfort to Tara and suggests that all her hardships are part of God's plan to bring her back to her
Wow.
mother. He's a bit uncomfortable when Lenny Mae's hug goes on too long. Guest star.
Wow.
I mean, was that kind of like all you knew?
No, I didn't know that. No,
I didn't know that even.
it's beautifully written. Well, it was in the material. I mean, the
Yeah.
material
Yeah.
itself spoke of all that. And, as I said,
Yeah.
I was in the world of theater on Cape May. I didn't keep
Yeah.
up. I mean, I was away from LA, so I was sort
Yeah.
of on,
Yeah.
I was on pause. But first of all, that's a beautiful. I mean, I don't even hear breakdowns like that specific, that well written. But it
Right.
was in the material in terms of it was just in the material. And thank God I've been doing it long enough to be able to extract or absorb from the material sort of
Mhm.
everything you just said.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful description. So everything you just said, I found, and I was even a little nervous because I knew Adina was playing.
Yes.
I knew she was playing, Lady May. So we hadn't worked together in a number of years, theater-wise, a good number of years. But yeah, we had worked together. And I had
Wow.
enjoyed every moment with her. So knowing that, I
Yeah.
kind of went, "Oh man, I hope I don't mess up too badly." In case she sees the tape,
Yeah.
she won't go, "Oh, that's not the Gregg Daniel I knew. The Gregg Daniel I knew was
Oh.
talented," or something.
Well, I wanted to ask about that. Both Rutina, Adina, Amelia, these really powerhouse, strong performers in their own right. And the amazing thing is you come in as a guest, but you pick up that ball with such ease. And you guys are
Yeah,
just, it's like watching good tennis when, groups of
Mhm.
you all are in those scenes together. And I'm just curious about that experience, being in theater, having that background, and then coming into a show with people who can play on that level. And what is that like for you? What is the fun of that, the joy of that?
Actors intuitively want to connect with each other. So when you
Mhm.
get like the A team of actors you're working with, you want to go with it because everyone lifts up, brings their A game.
Yeah.
Actors instinctively, intuitively want to connect. So you're in a scene with one, two, three, four people. If you're getting something from them, you will absorb it and give it back. So
Right.
it was wonderful. And the higher the level of acting, the craft of acting, the easier it is actually,
Yeah.
because then you're listening, you're hearing all these wonderful music and shadings and that's the best. That's the best when
Mhm.
the material's well written, and I think Alan Ball kind of knows how to write. If it's well written, and if you're with and you're really with actors who have their, so it actually is wonderful because every time I went in there, we all wanted to do the best for the scene, realizing the scene as much as we can. So it was all about, okay, let's roll up our sleeves, guys, and let's hit it. So it was a pleasure. It's a pleasure working with talented actors who know what they're doing, who
Yeah.
have some craft and some technique. It was a pleasure.
There's in a few interviews you said that you wished your legacy would be bringing honesty, intelligence, and talent to each performance. And
Wow.
I kind of wonder, honestly, if someone had asked me to kind of describe your performance as Reverend
Mhm.
Daniel's, I mean, honesty, intelligence, and talent, I may have picked up on those words.
Yeah.
So you did it. I've seen it, and
So kind. That's so kind.
yeah, it was on the screen.
Yeah.
I mean, there's something about the reverent part. I mean, obviously, a reverend is a
Mm.
bringer of faith. It's a
Yes.
bringer of sort of melding together bruised, hurt people. And even though they were vampires in Bonton, Louisiana, it didn't matter. It was about people trying to find ways to connect and come together. So the reverend role is very special because
Right.
a reverend is a bringer of faith,
Right.
is
Yes.
a healer.
Yes.
So you want to find ways to bring this disparate group of people, humans, vampires, Maynards, I mean, you want to find a way to bring them together. So you have to be honest. Play a reverent, you have to, because you're channeling kind of what's going to heal people, what's going to bring them together. You're stepping on the outside saying, this is a hurt individual. They've been somehow ostracized. They've been sort of discriminated against. They've been sort of, so how do I help? So that's a big mandate. I mean, that alone is saying, yes, I want to bring healing to this community. And I always thought that's what Reverend Daniels was trying to do. I always
Yeah.
thought Reverend Daniels was the one person there who was looking at all the disparate groups of people, wondering, how do we live in harmony? How do we live as a community? How do we find ways? It's not easy. No, it's not easy because you got bloodsuckers around here. So it ain't easy. But how do we find ways? How do we find ways to become a community and live with each other? So again, knowing that, it gave me a kind of lift to know that I was an instrument in maybe healing the citizens of Bontemps, Louisiana, and bringing them some sort of faith. That was wow, that's a lofty thing to play. That's a lofty mission to have, and I honored it. I tried to honor it every time I was on camera.
Well, we keep raving about this scene between you and Willa at the beginning of season 7 because we finally get this interesting, deep background.
I love that.
On Reverend Daniels, right? I mean, I think yours and Kristin's sort of trajectory in this thing lines up a little bit with starting as a guest, coming in here and there, and then slowly building to be a series regular and really involved. And that's
series reg.
Yeah, that last season, beginning with that scene where we see a vulnerability in him, and we see the responsibility as well as the compassion that comes with being a partner to Letty Mae. And I think that one scene really kind of cracked that character open and brought such a perspective to him over the years.
And they gave me a speech. They gave me a monologue.
Yeah,
I remember when I got the
did.
script and I had this I had like a page and I was so excited because you don't get monologues in television.
Yeah.
So I was so honored that the writers trusted me to take this speech. I mean, this wasn't a paragraph. This was like a full page monologue.
Wow.
And I just thought, what a gas. First of all, I love words. I mean, language for me, words and language. If you're an actor and you don't like words, then you're in the wrong profession. I love language. So when they gave me this speech, and as you said, Deborah, what it revealed about my past and what happened, I thought, this is like the Holy Grail, man. This is like, wow, this is like going to the mountaintop. So it was, and again, the trust in the writers gave me and being able to put forward this speech in the middle of an episode, and I'm telling them about my wife and what happened and how it was. So thank you, because that for me was probably the most fulfilling moment of the series for me, was being able to speak to speak with Willa and revealing that it was a human. It wasn't about vampires, and it wasn't about it was just a human being coming to grips with my failures, what I hoped to do, what I didn't do, if I looked at my life again. And they gave me a speech. I'm telling you,
such a gift.
I was skipping and going and just going, wow. Because that's the challenge I want. I don't want to give me 2 or 3 lines and move right on. I mean, give me stuff, man. Give me stuff that makes me look in here and really have to investigate. I really have to investigate what that speech is saying. So that was probably the most fulfilling. I'm being honest, a fulfilling moment for me. I had many lovely moments on True Blood, but that speech, so simply staged, sitting next to each other.
Yeah, in a pew.
Just having, but then trusted enough that the camera would have. Then I thought, they're going to cut it. They're going to cut it. They're going to cut the speech, or I'm not going to get through it. Something's going to happen. And then the final result was they kept the entire speech. They kept in the episode. Every word, y'all.
It's beautiful.
I feel like that was another thing you mentioned in an interview was collaboration. That's been a hallmark of your life and career and your goals. And I feel like on True Blood, we really had that, and we had the time. So I wonder how long between seeing that speech on the page and then by the time you filmed it, was there a week or 2 in there? And what does that look like in your process? Do you walk around saying it in your house? Are you talking to the bushes, or on your walks? Is it living in it's just living in you
All of
until
the
the
above.
day?
All
Yeah.
of the above. I had about a week. I had about a week for it,
Mm,
which was great. But
yeah.
first, it was just mechanically learning the lines, just get
Right.
those out of the way. So then, once you're mechanic, so what am I trying to say? What does each utterance mean to me? What am I trying to get over here? What are the objectives here in this speech? So once I got the mechanics out of the way, it really was about exploring. And it's a strange thing, as you actors know this. Somehow you get material, and life just you find instances in life
Yes.
Yes.
that reflect that. Suddenly you're finding these instances that
Yeah.
make each line even more resonant. So I
Yes.
Yeah.
so I did. But what was great about the week, I could explore anything I wanted to about each
Mm.
image they gave me. Each I could just explore, 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 and finally getting on the set. I forgot who the I so sorry, I forgot who the director was for that episode, but
Mhm.
she was very patient. She
Mm.
wasn't trying to like, okay, let's just get through and move
Right.
on. Moving on. We did at least a good number of takes with
Nice.
that. And
Mm.
each time I found something richer and richer. And then working with Willow, just looking at those little eyes of hers,
Oh.
just looking into
Yeah.
her eyes, you just feel so, it felt so fatherly. It felt so sort of, you
Yes.
just want to sort of embrace and protect. You know, it brought out those paternalistic impulses in me. And it was a pleasure. It was an
Yeah.
absolute pleasure. Something that I could do that from now to kingdom come.
I know.
you,
We've heard that from a lot of True Blood actors that we talk to, when they talk about the writing and the time that we had and the great
Hmm.
scene partners. And I wonder so many things, but how you felt at the end of season 7 when you're kind of
Mm.
putting Reverend Daniels on the shelf, you
Mm.
know?
Yeah, yeah, that's great. Now it's time to move on. It was, it had been accomplished, and it was time to move on. But don't think I missed the experience for sure, because
Mm.
there was a
Right.
kind of respect that HBO gave us. I mean, there
Yes.
Yes.
was a kind of request because, as you're saying, Kristen, they gave us time. They gave, and time is one of the biggest luxuries you can have in television or in a feature. The fact that you have time to explore not only for yourself but with the other actors what the values of the
Yes.
scene are. And
Mm,
HBO felt like they really gave us time. We weren't rushing to get from one setup to
mm,
another, make the day. Yeah, of course we wanted to make our days. That's important, but I didn't feel rushed.
Yeah.
And so that's why when it was all said and done at the end, I thought there was quality work in that series. And I really think it's attributable to the kind of respect for the craft that the producers, the runners on HBO afforded us, and it's in
yeah.
Hmm.
everyone's performance. I can
Hmm.
see it in everyone's performance. So it was bittersweet. Of course, it was bittersweet when we had to say goodbye. But I thought I had done some of the best work on television I had done,
Yeah.
and I've done a lot
That's
of
really wonderful.
television. I had done some of the best work.
I
I've done a
mean,
lot of
and
television.
a lot of
No, I
different
have.
genres and styles. I mean, the
I
like
did.
breadth you have to be able to bring in. It's, really kind of remarkable. Yeah.
Well, that's one thing I tell my students. I say, listen, guys, you have to have a variety and versatility.
Hmm.
So you can do a sitcom, you can do a
Yeah.
soap opera, you can do
Yep.
a procedural, you can do a drama. I mean, the more versatile you are, the more you'll be cast.
Southern
I say that to
vampire novel.
absolutely, really, really. That you just come on, bring it, y'all, bring it, because you
Yeah.
have the kind of facility, you have the kind of instrument where you can access all of that. So I think my being able to exist this long in the industry is attributable to being versatile enough, having enough variety in my craft to give me,
Yeah.
what do you want me to be? You want me to be this? You
Yeah.
want me to be, what do you want me
Mm.
to do? What do you want me to say? Just tell me. Just let's work. Let's do it. So, and as a result, I've been blessed to have a very varied and long career in this
Yeah.
industry. Yeah.
So yeah, I wanted to ask, branching off of that, with, everything that you have learned in your career, you're now giving back as a director and as a teacher. But I'm also curious, as you branch into those areas as a director and teacher, what do you learn about being an actor? Like, is there a flow back that
Oh,
happens?
so much. So much, because what I verbalize, what I put out there, what I
Yeah.
say, sometimes I even surprise myself because I believe it. I must believe it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
people who also, I stand on the shoulders of giants, of people who
Yeah.
taught me. And so those things which have become visceral and organic, I find myself saying to my students, and I'm like, or to an actor I'm directing in a scene, I'm thinking, oh, yeah. Yeah, I must really believe that. I've been doing this for 30, 40 years. So there is a kind of confirmation or an
Mm,
affirmation of what you
Yeah.
believe when
right.
you're taking a student and trying to get them from point A to B, or you're taking a professional actor and trying to get her from A to B to C, trying to support them. You have to believe what you're saying. So
Mm.
it's been a nice affirmation for me and validation of, yeah, and I must say, I've always wanted to be thought of as an actor's director. I've always
Interesting.
sort of
Yeah.
prided myself on that actors feel taken care of when I'm working with them, whether it's as a professor or as a director, that they're thinking, okay, my performance is going to be okay with him. He's not going to hang me out to dry. He's going to really help me realize this character. And I pride myself on being an actor's director that actors can trust. I'll create a safe space for you to take chances. We'll do it together. I'm listening to you. I'm absorbing what you're saying. That's the best creative environment you could possibly. Come on, the work that comes out of that kind of environment, that kind of
Yeah.
equation, you can see it. You see, you can't fake that. That's
Yeah.
something that can't be faked. It's either there on camera, or it's there on stage, or
Yeah.
it's not.
Yeah.
It's you can't fake it. And when it's there,
Mm.
it touches the soul.
Mm.
I sound lofty here, but it touches the
It
spirit,
does.
the human spirit. It touches the soul when it's there.
I wanted to underline and highlight an exclamation point, something that you said for all well, everyone, our fellow Carney folks that are listening, but also people who maybe want to go on a trip. They want to go on a
Mm.
safari, or they want to start taking a pottery class or whatever, is that thing that happens to all of us, because I was surprised to hear it happens to you. And I'm always surprised, kind of stupidly, that you mentioned doubt as kind of a
Mm.
Mm.
constant companion, and that we all have it. So the mind will come in and start the chatter. But like you said at the start, there's something in you that fights for the yes.
Yeah.
And that there will
Absolutely.
always be the angel on one shoulder and the devil on the other kind of thing. But that's, I think, the mind and then the spirit. The mind
Mm.
goes, it's not going to happen. What are you doing? This is stupid. You're wasting your time. And then somehow the actual you goes, I'm going to show up again.
There you go. Showing up. Boy, that's more than half the battle. Showing up,
Showing
being
up.
fully present. You are so right. Being fully present. That's
Mhm.
it's so right. You got to show up. You got
And
to
it's
show
hard to
up.
do.
Mm.
Sometimes it's
Yeah,
hard
because
to do.
you want to sort of protect yourself, but there's no hiding. If you're going to be an actor, there's no hiding. You have to let
Right.
those parts of yourself. But by doing so, you bless others. By doing so, you truly bless others.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you, Reverend Daniels.
Right, living my profession. That's right.
Thank you, Professor.
Professor
It's
Profession.
true.
Daniel.
I need that reminder.
But doubt's a good thing too, because with doubt, and I'm not saying crippling, crushing doubt,
Right.
but every new project I come to, I kind of come with it this authenticity. I look at it as this enormous question being asked. So rather than repeating the same thing I do become slick at it, I do the same thing, whether character wise or even directing wise. This is what I do. I do really well. So whatever I
Yeah.
do really well, I'm going to put it in a character. I'm going to find, then you just become a bit of a hack, quite frankly, because you're
Mm-hmm.
repeating the same performance.
Yeah.
So doubt makes me, I come to every project and everything sort of like, okay, this is a huge monster here.
Mm.
Every project.
Yeah.
How am I going to tame or enter into this question and how do I? So it keeps me sort of honest, the doubt,
Mm.
in that
Mm.
I don't take it for granted. I know the answer to it per se.
Yeah.
So that keeps me on the side of, okay, have you asked all the questions? Have you
Mm.
planned, or are you just leaning on something you
Mm.
think you've already known, you've
Right.
already done? Because that doesn't, that's just hackneyed. That's just
Yeah.
repeating the
Right.
same thing. So doubt can be very helpful, and if it leads you to approach each subject, like I said, like I don't know. I have to.
Right.
I'm just gonna stumble around and look a little awkward and a little crazy, a little stupid, but I'm gonna come to some sort of revelation. So doubt
Uh-huh.
needn't be this crippling, awful. And then you do it enough and you realize, I mean, my wife tells me all the time when I take on a project, I always feel like, okay, they've hired me, now they're going to find out I have no talent at all.
Totally,
I
that's
know.
always a thought.
Once I get the job is when I go,
Oh
okay, this
my
is it.
God.
This is the one. This is the one where they find out
Yep.
Man, why did we hide? And of course, she says, and she sort of nods because she knows
This is
that's
a
part of my.
stage.
She knows I'll
So
at some
sorry.
point I'll stop it, and I'll get into the script, I'll get into the work, and I'll get through it. So doubt can be useful.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
Somehow you have to push through rather than let it become crippling and stopping you. You
Mm.
have to just, okay, accept I'm nervous, I don't know what I'm doing, but don't stop. Find a
Mhm.
way to push through,
Mhm.
because what you'll come up with on the other end, of course, is going to be then you'll be able to sit back and go, okay, it's somehow I created something beautiful, something important, something compelling. But sure, doubt is part of it. Sure, doubt is part of
That is part of it, and then afterwards, there's always the thought where I think, "Oh my god, I got away with it once
it.
again.
Yeah.
I fooled him
Till the
once
next one.
again. Somehow I
Yeah, till the
pulled this out. Oh man, that was close."
Yeah, but the audience will let you know. The audience will let you know
Right.
if you've achieved. We had such people had such fealty to True Blood. I mean, my God, I would be in
Yeah.
airports and they would start telling me aspects of people that I didn't even know some of the characters. I never worked with them, like we said, because
Right.
I never had a chance.
Yeah.
But
So
they
that's
would start telling me aspects of the story, so you know that they were embracing this fully. It was, and I
Yeah.
don't mean in sort of a dangerous way. They just
Yeah.
were so filled with the story that each of these characters
Yeah.
that they would start telling me. And I'm like, oh yeah, and I'm like, yeah, okay. Boy, they're giving me an education on True Blood. So that's kind of the litmus test. You know how people embrace it, whether you've done the job you hope to do, how
Mhm.
much people are embracing it and feeling full with it. And that's, you
yeah.
can't fool the audience. You can't fool the audience. It either moves them or it doesn't move them.
I saw in an interview you said you had moments of, like, kinda wishing you could play a vampire or a
Yeah, I did.
supernatural. I know, it's so cute.
I wanted to be sexy. I wanted to be because everyone on the show, including Deborah and you guys, were all gorgeous and sexy. I got a collar on. I felt like that was just simply a kid. I'm going, I want to be sexy too. I want to be a vampire. I want to be a werewolf. That was just the kid
Well,
in me
we
wanting to.
we were colder and messier.
I know. I'll never
So
forget one day we were shooting the canyon and the guys had to take their shirt off, or a couple of
yeah.
them. Oh my God, they had to take their shirts off, and I'm sitting there going, "I'm glad I'm the Reverend. Man, I'm glad. I'm glad they
Uh-huh.
put me as a Reverend. I had a jacket, I had a
Yeah.
vest, but it was
It
cold,
was
and these
so
poor and
cold.
some of our castmates had to take off their shirts. And I'm like, so it's like grass is always greener. Even though I wanted to be, I was exactly where I was supposed to be. I was
Yeah.
exactly where I was supposed
Well, I
to be.
was curious, being the human on the vampire show might feel like sometimes you don't get to do all the fun stuff, but I would like to ask you in that final season, because you have this interesting V-trip dream world
Mm.
storyline that you're now involved in. And, it's always interesting to me when you're doing fantasy elements and, obviously there's drawing on
Mhm.
experience, but now fully imagination and things that are not
Yes.
real, quote unquote, but need to be grounded. And so, yeah, if you can speak a little bit to that last season and sort of jumping into the full craziness.
It sort of fed into the reverent spirituality, those things which we can't say, those things. I mean, the Bible is filled with faith
Yes.
about things. We take it for granted that there was
Yeah.
a crucifixion and there was, I mean, religion, whether it's Judeo Christian, whether there's always some kind of figure that. So some of those images just came to me as there's a
Mm,
spirituality that was
mm,
touched in the reverend that
Mhm.
suddenly revealed. It was a gift that
yes.
suddenly he dropped in. So rather than being crazy, I think it's part of spirituality because so much about spirituality is on faith that we've
Yes.
received something we don't understand at the moment. We can't make it out. But it's like dreams. It's like dreams, somehow dreams come along. And sometimes I wake up the next morning, I have a problem with something I'm directing on, and I'll wake up in the morning, I go, I know what to do. I know what to do.
Hmm,
Somehow the muse visited me during the night. So I always thought that that was the reference spirituality, that somehow it
beautiful.
extended beyond the world you can grasp and know,
Yeah.
but you had to go into the world of spirit and faith and belief in those things you cannot see. So it
Mhm.
made sense to me. It made the sense to
Hmm,
me that the Reverend was involved in that ecosystem because of the enormous amount of faith he had and the enormous amount of faith he wanted to do, the good that he wanted to do for people who were hurting, who are
Yeah.
suffering. If that makes sense, I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it
100%.
does.
I mean,
Grounded in the character, if I had to find a way to ground it, the most
yep.
outrageous grounded in the character. Go back and think about who are they? What do they want? And, oh yeah, spirituality is when we pray all the time, we're thinking of some higher level being that we don't know.
Yeah.
It was fun, and it was fun,
And it was fun.
and it was fun.
Speaking of that, are we ready, Deb?
I think we're ready. Why don't you go
What's
ahead?
this?
So we ask everyone
Hmm.
when they think of their experience on True Blood, if there are 3 words that come to mind.
I'll say challenging,
Yep.
fulfilling, risky.
Ah.
Wow. I like that.
Yeah. I think for me it was challenging work, it was fulfilling work, but it was also risky work because it was
Yes.
vampires and there's
Yes.
something risky about
There was.
either you
Yeah.
could hide or you could show up fully
Yes.
and embrace it. So risk is so I took risks on
Yes.
that. I did take risks at times,
Yes.
you
I
know,
felt the
and that
same way.
was did you feel the same way?
Mm-hmm.
I love seeing that in my students, or in a production, the growth from them not wanting to take a chance or not knowing, and then
Yeah.
suddenly weeks later or seasons later, man, they're just grabbing it and wrestling
Yeah.
with it. So, human growth is it's so
Huge.
powerful, human growth
Powerful.
and discovering our abilities. I relate to that. It was a fine, and nothing's repeated it so far. I've done other things, but nothing is quite,
Yeah.
good stuff, but
Yes.
nothing's
Good stuff.
quite, it's been as, the depth of that show, the depth of it.
And we've heard that from everyone we've interviewed.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that
Yeah.
interesting?
Yeah. I just want to say, there was a lot of trust there too. Like I remember, not just from writers, but I remember when Bill, he had an episode or 2 he was directing. One of them I was in. I just
Yes.
remembered how he just sort of let me go with it. He's just sort of, he'll come up in his little British voice and say, "That was a great take. Now let's do what you want," or let's.
Yeah.
But there was a trust. I really felt an inherent trust in. Greg knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
He knows
Yeah.
his character. Let me leave him alone
Yeah.
to explore some more. If I offer him a word or two, it's just going closer to what he's doing.
Yes.
And then when an actor feels that empowered, man, it was.
Mm.
So even when I
It's
worked with the
gold.
cast members, there was a trust that, yes, they know what they're doing. They know that trust them to bring it home. And
100%.
boy, and you don't always find that again in shows. They're like,
You do.
again, moving so quickly, just want you to hit it and get the result without doing the process. But I really felt we could go through the process on True Blood,
Yes.
not just come up with some sort of manufactured effect,
Right.
but we actually had a chance to go through the process of getting there. And I'm so grateful for that. Very,
too.
very grateful for being treated that way.
That's the other word that comes up all the time.
Grateful.
Yeah, because you don't always get that. That was a very special experience. And I just have to be honest, just to end, there's a sweet, gentle man. I just have to mention Nelson. I just have to mention because he's such a
course.
sweet, gentle spirit that I enjoyed working with fully.
Yeah.
And I just want to hold him up too and uplift his name, Nelson Ellis, who may not be with us that way, but boy, those years spent on that set, such a beautiful spirit. Hardworking, beautiful spirit. So you have to remember just to say the name to remember.
That's it.
Yes, because that's part of it as well. That is part of it as well. That's part of the human condition as well. So I thank you for allowing me to go there. But
Yeah,
I just
of
had to look up
course.
his name for.
Yeah.
He's a big part. He was a big part of that show.
He
Huge.
was a big part.
Groundbreaking some stuff he did. I'm telling you.
Groundbreaking.
Before it was this time where you could have gay characters or whatever. Before dressers. We had it on True Blood, guys.
We
had
had
it
it.
on True Blood.
We sure did.
Through his portrayal,
Yeah.
we had it. So let's give him his due and give him his.
Yes.
His
Yeah,
presence
thank you for-
will live on along.
Yeah.
Thank you for being that honest. Thank you for taking that kind of risk, and you blessed us all as a result of that.
Agreed.
Well, thank you, Greg. This has just been a dream.
Been
Thank you. This has been
so
wonderful.
Wonderful. So fun to
I'm
so
talk
glad
to
you
you.
did
Same
Such
here.
a
Back at you.
pleasure.
You guys were such pillars of just allowing me to Well, I felt like we were sharing it together too. We weren't so much that we were sharing with each other our experiences, and it made it live again for me. All coming
I
onto Saturday,
know.
it made those episodes live for me again. It did.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Whoa, Dad.
What an exceptional, what an exceptional chat here. I kind of love when these interviews veer off into like discussions of art in general and how we feel about that. Oh my
Yes.
God.
And he was the
It's
perfect
just
ambassador for that
oh,
discussion.
to peek into his brain as a teacher and a director and a writer and with someone with the exhaustive experience and career that he has.
know.
It just, he lit up my brain.
I know, he lit up my soul, right?
Yeah, my heart.
And he's one of those people who's been doing it forever and has this huge resume and sounds like he's as excited about continuing as he was on day one.
Yes, I
beautiful.
agree. I'm so impressed. Every single person we talk to.
I know, me too.
We were so lucky on this show to just work with people of his caliber.
Yeah, we were so lucky.
Next week on Truest Blood, we sit down with Carolina Widra to discuss her unforgettable turn as Vampire Violet. Now, I loved watching her work.
Oh my God,
she's amazing.
She's amazing. She's stunning. She's so sweet. She's the loveliest human being who somehow played this terrifying and manipulative to perfection character. I mean, just chef's kiss.
Oh. Well, thanks for listening, Trubies. Subscribe and follow wherever you listen to your podcasts, and we'll see you next week.
Y'all come back now. You hear.
Truest Blood is produced by Safe Haven for HBO. Executive producers are Janina Gavankar, Kristin Bauer, and Deborah Ann Wool. Our producer is Gabrielle Gallon, and our audio producer is Christopher Wool. Our theme song was recorded just for this podcast by Jace Everett. Additional music was composed by Timo Chen. And remember, you can watch all of the original episodes of True Blood on Max.